The cultivation world believed Devilfall Valley to be a place of chance, where those favored by fate returned laden with fortune while the unlucky vanished without a trace. Hanli knew better. To him, the valley was not a gamble, but a threshold one that separated the living from the forgotten, the cautious from the reckless, and mortals from things that should never have existed at all. Ancient oaths, sealed curses, and horrors that bled through fractured space lay buried beneath its depths. And yet, for the sake of survival, he would step forward alone, fully aware that some doors once opened, never truly closed. If you enjoy my way of explaining and storytelling, don't forget to like and subscribe. It really motivates me to keep creating. Having heard Cultivator Song's careful explanation, Han Li merely nodded, offering no further questions on the matter. It is for the best that Marshal Ni Song and Lady May do not go, Han Li said calmly. There are certainly villains lurking within the myriad Link Mountains. Even if I enter Devilfall Valley, I may not necessarily return alive. His gaze shifted slightly as he continued, Lady Violet Spirit, are you still determined to enter the valley? With a faint smile, Violet Spirit replied in an unhurried voice, so long as Brother Han is willing to venture into the valley, I am willing to brave the danger alongside you. I place my complete trust in fellow Taoist Han. Han Li fixed his eyes on her for a moment before speaking slowly. Since fellow Taoist Violet Spirit has spoken thus, I will not attempt to dissuade you further. However, before we enter Devilfall Valley, there are several matters that must be clarified. Violet Spirit showed no sign of surprise. She inclined her head slightly and said, That is only proper. If Brother Han has any questions, please ask without reservation. First, Han Li said, his expression turning solemn. I need to confirm whether the matter of the Spirit Kindle fruit is genuine. I have no intention of entering Devilfall Valley filled with expectation, only to discover that it never existed. I hope Lady Violet Spirit can give me a definite answer. Violet Spirit appeared to have anticipated this question. Without hesitation, she produced a green jade slip and handed it to him. The Spirit Kindle fruit truly exists. A nascent soul elder of the Ghost Spirit sect once escaped Devilfall Valley by sheer luck and personally confirmed its existence. Otherwise, why would a nascent soul elder of the Ghost Spirit sect risk everything to venture into such a deadly place? Han Li accepted the jade slip and sent his spiritual sense into it, silently reviewing its contents. After a short while, he withdrew his spiritual sense and returned the slip without any visible change in expression. Frowning slightly, he said in a hesitant tone, According to this record, the Spirit Kindle fruit does exist. However, it lies deep within Devilfall Valley, and even its approximate location is unclear. With this information alone, finding it will be exceedingly difficult. Seeming afraid that Han Li might retreat at this point, Violet Spirit hastily explained. The Ghost Spirit sect elder only encountered the Spirit Kindle fruit by accident, after manifesting his nascent soul. Because of that, he could not remember its exact location. However, he did record several distinguishing features of the surrounding area. With these clues, it should still be possible to find it. Recalling the contents of the jade slip, Han Li fell into contemplation, silently weighing the risks against the potential rewards. After a moment, he raised his head and asked evenly, Even if we do find the Spirit Kindle fruit, won't it need to be refined within the valley itself? Otherwise, its medicinal efficacy would quickly dissipate. Has Lady Violet Spirit already prepared the supplementary ingredients? Joy flashed through Violet Spirit's eyes, though she quickly suppressed it. With a bright expression, she replied, The supplementary ingredients required for the Nature Origin pill are indeed difficult to obtain. However, I have managed to gather them over the past few years. As long as we acquire the Spirit Kindle fruit, and fortune does not turn against us, refining the Nature Origin pills should not pose a problem. Han Li's expression darkened slightly as he said coldly, If that is the case, I am willing to make the attempt. However, Lady Violet Spirit, you should be fully aware of the dangers of Devilfall Valley. I will do my utmost to protect you once inside, but if we encounter a danger that even I cannot withstand, you must be prepared to rely on yourself. That is only natural, Violet's spirit replied without the slightest hesitation. The softness on her face faded, replaced by unwavering resolve. If something truly happens to me, I will not blame Brother Han. Moreover, I am quite confident in my own ability to survive. Hearing this, Han Li's expression finally relaxed. These words were clearly to his satisfaction. Can the three of you inquire about how the Ghost Spirit sect plans to enter Devilfall Valley? Han Li continued. When I arrived, I heard that the Ghost Spirit sect has been distributing Devilfall medallions to restrict the number of cultivators allowed inside. This strikes me as odd. Under such circumstances, whether a few hundred or a few thousand cultivators enter makes little difference. Yet they have imposed a strict limit. Otherwise, the Ghost Spirit sect would surely exploit this opportunity, considering each Devilfall medallion sells for tens of thousands of spirit stones. Violet Spirit was briefly startled, then smiled faintly. As expected, Brother Han's insight is sharp. You are very close to the truth. Although Mei Ning and I have not uncovered the exact method of entry, we have learned from our source, a disciple of the Ghost Spirit sect, that entering the valley requires the combined power of numerous Ghost Spirit sect cultivators, along with a massive expenditure of spirit stones, all performed at a specific time. It seems the number of entrants is indeed limited. Regardless of their method, Han Li said our Drifting Cloud sect has been allotted 3 Devilfall medallions. I obtained one upon returning to the sect, so entering the valley itself will not be a problem. However, the deeper regions are another matter. I have no confidence in emerging safely. Most cultivators will likely remain on the outskirts searching for opportunities there. Only nascent soul cultivators would dare venture into the depths. Naturally, there may be some core formation cultivators who attempt to force their way in, but they should be few. Fellow Taoist Violet Spirit should not encounter excessive danger in the outer valley and ought to manage well enough. As for entering the inner valley, Han Li's eyes flickered as he switched to voice transmission, conveying the rest of his words privately. Cultivator Song and Mei Ning showed no displeasure at this. Given the immense danger involved, such caution was only reasonable. After Han Li finished speaking, Violet Spirit hesitated briefly before nodding. Everything is as Brother Han has said. Then we shall meet again inside Devilfall Valley, Han Li said. Oh yes, Marshal Niece Song. I heard from the sect disciples that Senior Marshal Brother Cheng has already arrived. Do you know where he is? Cultivator Song paused for a moment before answering hurriedly. I do not know. Senior Marshal Brother Cheng arrived with several close companions. I have not seen him yet. So that is how it is, Han Li murmured. It seems Senior Marshal Brother Cheng intends to enter the valley before reaching the end of his lifespan. After a brief silence, Han Li frowned and asked, I have also heard rumors that the Mulan will be entering Devilfall Valley. Is this true? Do you have any information? Cultivator Song looked slightly troubled and could only answer helplessly. We have heard the same rumors, but the matter is unclear. We do not know whether it is true. Han Li stroked his chin and fell silent. Moments later, his expression subtly changed, and he took his leave. Left behind, the 3 women exchanged uneasy glances. What happened? Violet Spirit asked softly, confusion flickering in her eyes. Why did Brother Han leave so suddenly? Mei Ning frowned, a trace of disappointment appearing on her face. I don't know. It seems Senior Han has other matters to attend to. Cultivator Song glanced toward the door, murmuring to herself under her breath. At that very moment, Han Li was walking along a secluded street, his pace calm and measured. Yet within his mind he was furiously scolding someone. Were you trying to scare me to death? An aged voice replied lazily from within his consciousness, Heh. I merely thought that girl, Violet Spirit, was exceedingly beautiful. Stirring a few of your emotions is only natural. Han Li snorted coldly. Don't tell me you've forgotten what happened when you used the 7 Passions art on my second nascent soul. You may indulge in whatever sensations you wish, but do not drag me into it. My second nascent soul is linked to my consciousness. Besides, Violet Spirit's current appearance is nothing special. You haven't even seen her true face. And your former concubine Ruyun was said to be peerless in beauty. How could someone like her drive you out of control? You aren't trying to deceive me, are you? The old man's voice slowed, tinged with resentment. I originally intended to use the Seven Passions art to deal with your primal soul. Who would have thought that a mere early-stage nascent soul cultivator would possess a second nascent soul and survive? Calamity. Otherwise, how would I have ended up like this? Though the Seven Passions art cannot control a cultivator's consciousness, it can still manipulate emotions, weakening one's will to fight and resolve to kill. As for that girl, although she uses a secret technique to conceal her true appearance, I can see through it with my spiritual sense. Even if your Seven Passions art were far stronger, it would still fail to lead me astray from my objectives. Hanlai replied coldly, though I share certain sensations with my second nascent soul, your technique amounts to nothing more than a minor hindrance. What truly surprised me was this: who would have believed that the core founder of the Thousand Bamboo School, creator of the Great Development Technique, the monarch of soul divergence himself, had survived until now by possessing a puppet. If not for your terrifying spiritual sense and complete mastery of the Great Development Technique, I would never have believed it. But make no mistake, if you dare to stir my emotions over a female cultivator again, do not blame me for being impolite. The old man snorted disdainfully. Youngster Han, you should understand that even with the aid of soul-nurturing wood, my soul will only persist for a few dozen more years before dissipating. If not for the fact that I have nearly completed my final puppet, I would have gladly reincarnated long ago. After countless years trapped within a sensationless puppet, I have lived more than enough. And if you had gone as long without seeing a woman as I have, you would be no different. Hearing this, Han Li rubbed his nose, a splitting headache forming. The old eccentric's true body was concealed within the tube strapped to his back. Were it not for the man's agreement to teach him the final 3 layers of the Great Development Technique and his willingness to impart several unpublished, powerful puppet designs, Han Li would have already exterminated him by whatever means necessary. Most troublesome of all was the old eccentric's unfathomably powerful spiritual sense. Even in his current state, soul-searching techniques were utterly ineffective against him. Worse still, Han Li had nearly been counter-controlled, frightening him enough to never attempt such a method again. When facing the monarch of soul divergence, an ancient eccentric who had lived for over 10,000 years, Han Li felt an overwhelming sense of helplessness. Han Li paused for a brief moment before asking old eccentric, when you possessed the puppet body, did you never consider moving your primal soul out of it? With your abilities, that shouldn't have been difficult. You think the soul attachment technique is so easy to employ? The old man replied coldly, back when I was alive during my so-called era of genius, my attention was spread far too thin. I not only created a secret art to strengthen spiritual sense, but also founded the Thousand Bamboo School and researched the long-extinct puppet arts of Heavenly South. Those endeavors consumed the greater part of my lifespan. On top of that, I was still cultivating. In the end, I reached late-stage nascent soul and roamed the region without an equal. Roamed the region without an equal? Han Li asked, wearing an odd expression. What, you think I'm boasting? The old man scoffed. When my cultivation peaked, I challenged renowned cultivators across the land. I merely kept my victories discreet. That is why my name never spread, and only a handful of peak cultivators knew of my existence. Even setting aside other lands, the foremost figures of both the righteous and devil Tao of Heavenly South were beaten into submission by my hand. They were even willing to cede the far west to me and relinquish their authority over it. Otherwise, do you truly believe Heavenly South cultivators would have stayed away? Even if the far west was poorer in resources back then than it is now and could barely sustain 2 nations, it was still sufficient to support many sects. The monarch of soul divergence spoke with unconcealed pride. The far west. You seized it by force? Han Li asked. With force and more, the old man said, his tone growing even more triumphant. I compelled the 2 leading figures of the righteous and devil Tao to swear venomous oaths for 10,000 years. Their descendants and disciples were forbidden from setting foot in the far west. To drive figures of that stature to such a point, the corner of Han Li's mouth twitched in disbelief. If they had refused, I would have exterminated their lineages without mercy. The old man replied indifferently, "Do you take me for someone soft-hearted? If they attempted to overwhelm me with numbers, my 1,000 puppets would have been more than sufficient to meet them head-on. What truly surprises me is that neither the righteous nor the devil Tao has invaded the far west even now. Could it be that they are still obeying their ancestors' command?" The monarch of soul divergence sounded genuinely perplexed. Han Li fell silent. The old eccentric was clearly not speaking empty words. Even if he exaggerated his past, the 1,000 bamboo school's 1,000 puppets were no small threat, even if most were only at foundation establishment stage. As for why the righteous and devil Tao never invaded the far west, the distance, the scarcity of resources, and lack of interest were all plausible reasons. In any case, it had little to do with him, and he did not dwell on it further. Just then the old man let out a long sigh. When I finally believed I had reached the peak of the cultivation world, I discovered I had committed a fatal mistake. My lifespan was nearly exhausted, and my cultivation was forever halted at late nascent soul stage. No matter how outstanding my talent and abilities were, I only had 200 years remaining, far too little time to break through to deity transformation. Had I not diverted my focus into puppet arts from the beginning and insisted on creating my own designs, I truly believe I would have had a real chance of entering the deity transformation stage and ascending to the spirit realm. Instead, I ended up trapped inside a puppet body for over 10,000 years, living in constant terror. The monarch of soul divergence spoke in a gloomy, dejected voice. Hearing this, Han Li pursed his lips and rolled his eyes, yet a trace of envy still surfaced within him. For ordinary cultivators, forming a core or condensing a nascent soul was already unimaginably difficult. Yet this old man spoke of deity transformation as though it were within easy reach. If his words were true, then he was indeed a heaven-defying genius, one seen only once in 10,000 years. After realizing there was no longer any hope of entering deity transformation, I refused to wait helplessly for death. The old man continued, "It is said the soul is immortal and reincarnates, but without memories, would that still be me? I would become an entirely different person. In the next life, I might be a mere mortal with no spirit roots at all, with almost no chance of cultivating. With that fear gnawing at my heart, I spent my remaining 200 years searching for a way to extend my life or preserve my memories after reincarnation. I failed countless times until I finally devised the soul attachment technique, using the Great Development Technique as its foundation. It was a secret art never before discovered." He let out a cold laugh. Han Li smiled faintly. "So you abandoned most of your cultivation to transfer your consciousness into a puppet and became a living corpse for 10,000 years. Do you think I had a choice?" The old man snapped. "I barely had time to complete the soul attachment technique halfway. Even so, I used it out of desperation and ended up like this. After attaching myself to the puppet, I never expected my cultivation to vanish entirely. I was left with nothing but spiritual sense. Manifesting a nascent soul was impossible. As for the secret chamber I was sealed in, it was protected by terrifying spell formations and over 100 puppet guards. Without a physical body or magical power, I couldn't control the puppets even if I broke the restrictions. Fearing retaliation from my enemies, I told no one of that chamber's existence. My disciples were only at core formation stage and incapable of finding me. Thus I remained trapped for 10,000 years. If not for this puppet body and the vast number of spirit stones I stored within that chamber, I would have long since perished." By the end, his voice was ice cold. Han Li frowned deep in thought. Soon after, his expression relaxed slightly. "Old eccentric, why are you so talkative today? In the past, whenever I asked about your history, you were always indifferent and lazy. Yet now you speak with such detail." The old man snorted angrily. "Who said I wouldn't tell you? Since you cultivate the great development technique, you can be considered half a disciple. Besides, had you not discovered the secret chamber of the 1,000 bamboo school so quickly, my soul would have scattered soon enough. The soul attachment technique is no true method of prolonging life. Even if the puppet lasted 10,000 years, my soul would still have burned out without nourishment from a real body. I never expected you to be clever enough to notice that my puppet differed from the others and to strike first. You nearly killed me. I was the one who struck first." Han Lai replied coldly, "If you hadn't launched a sneak attack on me with that worthless Seven Passions art, I would have left you alone despite sensing something amiss. As it is, you formed a mutual restraint with my second nascent soul and can no longer act recklessly for fear of backlash. True, your Seven Passions art can drive my second nascent soul into madness, but likewise, my main nascent soul can use the assimilation technique to erase your existence from it. How was I supposed to know that a young freak like you had condensed a second nascent soul?" The old man retorted indignantly. "At the time I could only use spiritual sense and no magic power whatsoever. I attacked purely in self-preservation." Han Li fell silent, no longer wishing to argue. After a short pause, the old man said in a self-mocking tone, "Enough. Let's leave it at that. I never expected you to possess a treasure made of soul-nurturing wood. Otherwise, even if I had taken control of you, I would have perished within a year. This is at least a stroke of fortune." Han Li halted in his tracks and replied calmly, "I only allowed you to use the soul-nurturing wood because you agreed to teach me the final 3 layers of the great development technique, and because I am interested in your puppet designs. You spent 10,000 years sealed in that chamber researching them. Since I cultivate your technique, I cannot allow those designs to be wasted. This is nothing more than a transaction." The old man burst into laughter within Han Li's mind. "Youngster Han, you grow more agreeable by the moment. In my lifetime, I despise deception as well. If not for your pitiful aptitude, which prevents you from cultivating my art, I would have taken you in as a disciple and passed down my legacy." Han Li blinked, then smiled faintly. "I already possess many techniques, yet my talent is limited. Even if you handed me a cultivation art 100 times superior, I would not have the capacity to cultivate it. However, I am quite interested in your secret techniques." "Secret techniques?" the old man replied casually. "You'll be disappointed. All of my secret techniques are tied to my primary cultivation art. Without cultivating it, you cannot use a single one." Han Li felt a trace of disappointment, but he quickly changed the subject. "Then let it be. Being able to cultivate the great development technique and obtain your puppet designs is already enough. This trip was not in vain. However, I still find it strange. Why did you not pass down the true final 3 layers of the technique to your disciples, instead giving them false yet convincing incantations?" The old man clicked his tongue. "My disciples. Over hundreds of years, not a single one reached the nascent soul stage and qualified to inherit my legacy. Giving them the true final layers would have only invited disaster. In fact, you who are not even a disciple of the 1,000 Bamboo School managed to obtain the early layers of the great development technique. It seems my judgment was correct after all." Han Li's gaze flickered slightly as he replied indifferently, "The great development technique was not something I fought over in the far west. It was delivered to me." The monarch of soul divergence responded casually, "Relax. The present-day 1,000 Bamboo School is no longer controlled by the lineage of my personal disciples. Even if you truly had robbed it, I wouldn't care in the slightest. As long as it does not affect our agreement, you may think as you please." After a brief hesitation, Han Li continued, "However, I must ask, are you truly incapable of dissolving the Soul Seal curse?" "It is not impossible," the old man replied with unconcealed disdain. "But it is impossible for me, given the limits of my remaining lifespan. Otherwise, no curse, no matter how profound, could escape my insight." Although Han Li had already anticipated this answer, his heart still sank with deep disappointment. Maintaining a neutral expression, Han Li said very well. Since you cannot dissolve the curse, I have no choice but to enter Devilfall Valley. After an unexpected moment of silence, the old man spoke again, his tone grave. Youngster Han entering Devilfall Valley is not a wise decision. When my lifespan was nearing its end, I once intended to enter it myself until I discovered the soul attachment technique. Still, I conducted thorough research beforehand. Do you truly believe you can leave the valley safely simply because one or two fools occasionally manage to crawl back alive? Setting aside the ancient restrictions alone, the spatial tiers there are unimaginably terrifying. They would occasionally— His words abruptly trailed off. Hanley's heart stirred. They would occasionally open passages to other worlds, the old man replied flatly, releasing demonic and devilish creatures. If you encounter one of them, you had best pray your luck does not fail you. Other worlds? Hanley asked sharply. Aside from the spirit realm, the immortal realm and the underworld, are there more? Calmly the old man explained, in my youth, I once obtained an ancient text that recorded fragments of knowledge regarding other worlds. The immortal realm has no connection to our mortal world. The spirit realm and the underworld exist on higher planes, yet are difficult to traverse. They are filled with ferocious demons and ghosts, but such beings cannot descend here of their own will. They are most akin to the elder devils of antiquity from our own world. Should they ever gain an opportunity to cross into this realm, they would seize it without hesitation. Some elder devils are even recorded by name. If even a few of their incarnations were to descend, the consequences would be catastrophic. At your current level, you would stand no chance against them. Elder devils? Hanley said, astonishment clear on his face. I've never heard of such beings. They are unlike humans or demon beasts, the old man replied solemnly. They assume countless forms. In antiquity, it was said that a pathway once existed between the elder devil realm and our world. As a result, elder devils poured forth and wreaked havoc across the human lands. Ancient cultivators fought them for countless years, eventually exterminating them one by one through sheer numbers. However, the cost was immeasurable. Casualties were innumerable. Many ancient techniques and spirit beasts vanished forever. The decline of ancient cultivators had much to do with that calamity. Hanley's expression changed drastically. From the miraculous techniques and treasures left behind, he knew how terrifying ancient cultivators had been. Yet from the old man's tone, these elder devils had been even more formidable, an entire tier above them. Not only that, the old man continued, but in later eras, certain devil Dao cultivators discovered the existence of the elder devil realm. By cultivating ancient devil arts, they established techniques mimicking the abilities of elder devils. Some even used forbidden methods to tear at the world's boundaries, borrowing devilish ki from named elder devils to vastly increase their strength. Though these techniques are undeniably powerful, those who cultivate them to the pinnacle do not ascend to the spirit realm. Instead, they are drawn into the elder devil realm and become one of its kind. Of course, this remains legend and has never been verified. Still, many devil Dao cultivators covet such ferocious power and willingly brave the risks. After all, one must reach the deity transformation stage to even be eligible for such a fate, something most cultivators need not concern themselves with. As for Devilfall Valley, the chance of its spatial tiers opening a path to another world is exceedingly small. You may well pass through safely. Perhaps all this is nothing more than needless worry. Hanley suddenly recalled the demonic transformation techniques he had witnessed in the past, along with several strange, inhuman silhouettes. His blood ran cold. After a long, solemn silence, he asked if an elder devil truly could pass through a spatial tear in Devilfall Valley. Why wasn't Heavenly South plunged into chaos in the past? The old man let out a cold laugh. Because those tiers are not true gateways. At most, only weak incarnations or lower-grade devils can pass through. Their cultivation is insufficient to withstand the restrictions of our world, and they cannot remain here for long. But before they are expelled, They have more than enough time to torment the cultivators who enter Devilfall Valley. So only lower-grade devils, and only for a short time, Han Li murmured. His tense expression eased and he exhaled in relief. It reminded him of how the Mulan once used an ancient lantern to summon their sacred bird. Don't relax too quickly, the old man warned. Even weakened, those elder devils possess incomprehensible abilities. Even if a human cultivator matched them in cultivation, death would still be inevitable. Han Li frowned deeply and sighed. Senior speaks with such certainty, yet you never entered the valley yourself. Are you simply trying to frighten me? The old man replied coldly. Several close friends of mine once entered Devilfall Valley. Their luck failed them immediately. They encountered an elder devil, only one survived to tell the tale. Like me, they were powerful cultivators who lived in obscurity. Few in Heavenly South even knew of their existence. That is enough for today. His tone shifted abruptly. If you still insist on entering Devilfall Valley, you must rely on yourself. Here, this is the incantation for the 5th layer of the Great Development Technique, along with 2 core formation stage puppet designs. Consider them part of the agreed reward. As soon as he finished speaking, a white jade slip shot out from the bamboo tube. It spun once in the air before falling squarely into Han Li's grasp. I thought Senior had forgotten, Han Li said with a trace of delight. Though his mind was still weighed down by thoughts of elder devils, he immediately immersed his spiritual sense into the jade slip. I must now nurture my soul, the old man said lazily. Fortunately, the Heaven Fortune cask still contains my remaining puppet designs. If you have no further matters, do not disturb me. With that, his voice vanished. After finishing his inspection of the jade slip, Han Li turned and looked at the bamboo tube on his back, his expression wavering. He knew the old man was still concealing many secrets, but there was nothing he could do. The Heaven Fortune cask was the name of the bamboo tube. Though unremarkable in appearance, it was a genuine spatial treasure, housing the puppet body of the monarch of soul divergence. Otherwise, Han Li would have long since stored it in his storage pouch. After a long while, Han Li put away the jade slip, glanced around, then looked toward the sky. In a flash of azure light, he shot upward and flew straight out of the city. Night had already fallen. Han Li halted above a forest near the city and descended beside an enormous tree. Something massive lay partially buried nearby. It was a gigantic head, its hair wild and tangled. Any mortal who saw it would flee in terror. Yet upon closer inspection, one would discover that its body was entirely buried beneath the earth. The head was covered in long green-black hair, its face obscured. As Han Li approached, the giant stirred, opening a pair of ghastly green eyes. Upon recognizing Han Li, the light within them faded, replaced by docile obedience. Han Li smiled and stepped closer, circling it with interest. Not bad. It has already begun to nurture a rudimentary consciousness, he muttered with satisfaction. It should prove quite useful in Devilfall Valley. Soon after, Han Li laid down several restrictions around the area and sat cross-legged. Rather than cultivating, he retrieved a yellow medallion from his storage pouch engraved with the words, Heaven Peak Sect. As Han Li narrowed his eyes at it, a faint glimmer shone within the darkness. That's all for today's content. See you in the next part. Support me by becoming a member. It will give me more motivation. Thank you so much.